You are listening to the Ball Truth Sports. My name is Terry Waldrop. Well, the old bald coach got a few right last week. Also took it on the chin a couple times. Really missed with Bobby Petrino in Western Kentucky. Thought they were going to roll into Knoxville and take down the Volunteers. Can't turn the ball over 6 times in a row and win. Can you, Bobby P? Ask the New York Giants about that one. Still, at the end of the day, the Volunteers are still a lot more Mississippi State than they are South Carolina in the SEC East. We did nail the Michigan wins over Notre Dame and did pick up Georgia in a must-win over South Carolina. Good news for South Carolina. Their schedule is set for the rest of the year. They may have one loss going into the final week of the season. Let's jump right in and let's look at week 3 of the college football season. Let's stay right at home. ULM and Wake Forrest. Before last week's game, Coach Doug Williams at Grambling said he wasn't a big fan of the I-20 game. Judging from the results last week, I can see why. The Tigers were swacked on the Bayou, but the Tigers' defense was more exposed than New York mayoral candidate Anthony Weiner doing a Snapchat commercial with unlimited minutes. The Hawks kick-started their offense. They found a ground game that put a smile on even Les Miles' face. Equally important, it gave quarterback Colton Browning a bit of a break to continue to rest and hopefully get healthy, and that could potentially spell trouble for the pesky preachers from Wake Forest. They've been sort of an up-and-down team, hard to get a handle on. They got a beat down in Beantown last week. They are in need of some much-needed answers and relief. Conventional scheduling wisdom from the ACC says that ULM is the answer to that relief. Well, if anything, the Ball Truth is anything but conventional. ULM in a thriller, 38-37. Ole Miss at Texas. What team outside Mississippi State is uttered the words, Ole Miss is a must-win, guys? After a Texas squad that saw BYU rack up more mileage on the ground in the West since Joseph Smith and the Mormons had their pilgrimage in the 1800s, the smoldering discontent and the Horns' perpetual underachieving status in Austin has reached a boiling point. You can say now it's pretty much a raging inferno. Not to mention, you got the hated Oklahoma Sooners in the yearly State Fair game looming. Mac Brown and the Horns have got to make a statement, and it's got to be in this game. Problem for the Horns, this isn't your dad's Ole Miss team. This is a rebel team that isn't ready to contend with LSU and Alabama and the SEC West, but they are vastly improved. And let's face it, they got an SEC swag about them. The boys from Oxford are not going to be really quaking in their boots going in to face Bevo, who's going to be a 3-point dog at home to Ole Miss. If matters couldn't get worse for Texas, the hated Texas A&M Aggies are playing the biggest game in the country just down the street. It couldn't get worse. Well, actually it could if they lose, which they very well could. Against my better judgment, I'm going to take Texas and Mac Brown to survive this week. The Ball Truth prediction, the University of Texas 31, Ole Miss 14. Mind you, just like Big Brother, Mac is going to get voted out of the coaching house at some point during the season, and it's not going to end well for my friends there in Austin. On another note, Lane Kiffin at USC appears to have no major plans after this season. Perhaps he's a fit in Austin. Perhaps not. More on that one later. Now, let's get to the game that everybody's been talking about, the game of the year, well, at least for a while. Number 1, Alabama, rolling in to play the number 7, Johnny Football, also known as Texas A&M. Just about every team in America, and most of the SEC, is a Johnny Manziel fan for at least this week. An Alabama loss opens the door for all the the teams from other conferences outside the SEC to have a shot to hoist the BCS trophy before the playoffs start next year, and that chance is probably gone for forever, or at least for the foreseeable future. Even the NCAA has to be a Johnny Football fan this week. Think of all the autographs they could sell with Johnny signing the autographs for them, and they pocket the money. Want to talk hypocrisy? That's another show as well. Now, how to beat Alabama? One way to do it is to keep Alabama off balance has been to have a running, passing quarterback. Look at the last couple years and the success people have had against Alabama, limited as it may be. Last year with Johnny Football. Jordan Jefferson a couple years ago in the regular season. Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, having that dual threat quarterback before Saban sort of catches on to that. The key for the Tide is, can their offensive line give Mr. Catherine Webb, also known as A.J. McCarron, the time he needs to get his receivers open? If they can give him the time to get the receivers open and the receivers can create space, that's also going to open up the ground game for for Alabama, and that could spell doom for a very, very young Texas A&M defense. Make no mistake about it, Johnny Manziel, who's like a very, very famous quarterback that the Tide had years ago that you old guys like me will remember, one Joe Willie Namath, thrives on this sort of competition, thrives on the controversy, thrives on the pressure of this sort of game. He's going to keep the Aggies in the game. He's going to make some plays. He's going to put up some points. You can rest assured of that. Alabama is going to be able to match that. This game's going to be a lot closer than people are giving them credit for. Neither team is as good as they were last year at this point. Neither team is polished. But the problem is, you give Saban a week to prepare. You have Alabama that's extremely motivated. They can lose 2 potential games all year in the regular season. This one, and they host LSU. They're not going to lose the game. The ball truth prediction: Alabama 31, Texas A&M 21. Other games of note: LSU over Kent State by a lot. Saw LSU in person last week. Mettenberger vastly improved over what he was last year. If LSU's defense continues to improve, and that's going to be the key to their team this year, they're going to be a very tough out. Notre Dame comes back, beats a terrible Purdue team. Oregon beats Tennessee. TCU goes to Lubbock, knocks off the Red Raiders. Louisiana Tech gets by Tulane. Ohio State pummels Cal. Other news: it's going to be a tight race between Mack Brown and Lane Kiffin to see which guy goes first. These are 2 of the best programs in America, USC and Texas. Now, USC has had some problems with the recruiting violations, etc. Texas has been in 2 BCS national title games in the past 8 years. How many teams would trade for that? Just about everybody not named LSU, Alabama, or probably Florida. Point being, USC, with Pete Carroll, had a multitude of the Reggie Bush recruiting violations. You can sort of see the downturn for the Troy just a bit, give them a little bit of a break, but losing 10-7 to the Pirate, now understand something. The Pirate can coach from Washington State. Dude got a raw deal in the old ball coach's opinion at Texas Tech. Dude can ball. He can coach. Leach will be back at a big-time Division I program in the next 3 to 4 years. Lane Kiffin probably does not survive the year at USC. Texas, on the other hand, Mack Brown, one of the most beloved coaches in America. No question, he's a great guy. Been at Texas, I believe, 16 years. 2 BCS national title appearances. The good has been really good. The bad has been really bad. The bad coming at a very exceptionally horrific time, considering what Texas A&M has done in the jump to the SEC, the Johnny Manziel Heisman, and the hype of the program overall. Texas, arguably the best job in America in football. And we'll discuss a lot of that as to why in a future rant coming early next week. But it's going to happen at some point. Texas is dropping further behind in the recruiting process, and that simply just can't happen to arguably the most powerful program in America. So whatever happens here, it's going to be close between Lane Kiffin and Mack Brown to see which one goes first. My money is on Lane Kiffin. Remember when Al Davis eliminated Lane Kiffin from the Raiders, and everybody thought that Al Davis was senile or crazy? Makes you stop and go back and think a little bit now, doesn't it, Raider Nation? How do you think the folks in Knoxville feel about him? Sort of makes you wonder. At any rate, 2 of the most prestigious jobs in America very well could be opened up very quickly. Could be interesting to see what big names pop into those positions. Anyway, just food for thought, people. This is Terry Waldrop. You've been listening to The Ball Truth Sports. Hope your weekend is a good one, and we'll catch you back same time next week.